Welcome, fellow baked goods. I'm Mr. McScruffmuffin. No, your political candidate is stupid, and today I'm thinking about anger. Now, this is a part of the series on the 7 deadly sins, so if you'd like to take a step back and look at things from a little bit further out, here's a link coming at you. It's tax deductible, so you have nothing to lose. Alright, so anger. Anger is a tricky thing. Of all the vices, anger can sometimes make the most sense. Anger usually flares up when someone hurts us in some way, or at least we perceive that we've been injured by somebody. Now, there's plenty of latitude for anger on a lot of different levels. So anger is really only evil when it gets out of proportion and out of hand. After all, I think there's kind of a deficiency when you aren't angry when you should be. I think it would be inhuman to look at the wholesale slaughter of innocent children and not feel a swell of anger about that. But there's got to be a distinction that's drawn. And regarding that distinction, I'll quote at length from Archbishop Fulton Sheen in his book, The 7 Capital Sins. So this is Archbishop Sheen here. All right, ready? Quote, "Be angry and sin not, for anger is no sin under 3 conditions. 1, if the cause of anger be just, for example, the defense of God's honor. 2, if it be no greater than the cause demands, that is, if it be kept under control. And 3, if it is quickly subdued. Quote, let not the sun go down on your anger." Here we are not concerned with just anger, but with unjust anger, namely that which has no rightful cause, anger which is excessive, revengeful, and enduring. The kind of anger and hatred against God which has destroyed religion on 1/6 of the earth's surface, and which has burned countless churches and chapels and murdered more servants of God than in any other century prior to our own. The kind of hatred which is not only directed against God, but also against fellow men, and is fanned by the disciples of class conflict, who talk peace but glory in war. The red anger which rushes the blood to the surface, and the white anger which pushes it to the depths and bleaches the face. The anger which seeks to get even, to repay in kind, bump for bump, punch for punch, eye for eye, and lie for lie. The anger of the clenched fist prepared to strike not in defense of that which is loved, but in offense against which is hated. The kind of anger which will destroy our civilization unless it is smothered by love. End quote. So anger, considered rightly, or righteous anger as it's sometimes rendered in the Catholic tradition, focuses on something outside the self. It has nothing to do with mere hurt feelings or egotism, and it has even less to do with getting even. It has to do with justice, truth, and love. Anger must concern something real. It must be a defense against a wrong, not as an offense against this or that. It must also stop when it needs to stop. The force, the language, and the duration must be no longer than is required to enact justice. It also must not last long. We should never seethe in anger for years, and we should always be prepared to forgive and welcome the person or persons back. Anger outside of this context clouds the intellect and prevents us from thinking clearly. And it can give us tunnel vision as well. You see this in politics a lot, actually. People get their feathers ruffled by, this article or that news story, and they begin hurling insults or shooting out articles to the exclusion of all other information. Often people formulate an opinion and then defend the opinion with such vehemence and rigor that they ignore even valid points that are raised by the other side. In addition to that tunnel vision, anger also poisons the well of mercy in our hearts. We begin to naturally view others with a certain scorn and a certain mistrust. Now, there's a fabulous episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, one of my favorites, and it's called The Wounded. And in that episode, Captain Picard is discussing with another crewman about a captain on another ship who's been badly hurt by members of an alien race during a war. And Picard eventually sums up his thoughts by saying, "I believe that when someone has been angry for a very long time, it begins to become comfortable, like old leather, until eventually one cannot remember feeling any other way." It's this anger that makes it a capital vice. Its immediate consequences can be bad enough: yelling, striking, damaged friendships, mistrust. But the other larger consequences are the poison in our veins, the feelings of deep-seated mistrust, of contempt for others, of irascibility, having a short fuse, of viewing other people as adversaries, of racism, classism, bigotry. All of these things destroy us slowly, little by little. All right, so how do we confront anger? I mean, it's kind of a difficult thing to confront because, like I said, it does give you that sort of tunnel vision, that sort of self-righteousness almost sometimes, that it's right to be angry. Well, the contrary virtue to anger is patience. Patience not in some floppy, lovey-dovey, it'll all work out in the end sort of patience, but rather a patience that views offenses and covers them with love instead of with fists. It's the patient that looks at another person who wrongs us and says, "I refuse to believe that you are just that. You are more. You have more value than that. And destroying or diminishing you in any way detracts from that goodness. I may be angry with you, and perhaps even rightfully so, but I can see beyond that to who you can be and who I can be, and I will bear with you doing whatever I can to help us both get there. Yes, I will fight your misdeeds, but I will fight them with love, not with pointed barbs of sarcasm, not with passive aggressiveness, not with force, but with love. Not vengeance, but true justice. Not hatred or indifference, but love." All right, so let's grow in patience, and may our vice of anger always shrink. A way to practice that patience might be to do something as simple as choosing a longer checkout line at the grocery store. And while you wait, realize that you don't need to be first, and that even as you wait, you're growing in virtue and kindness. It might seem like you're wasting time, but in actuality, you can use that as an occasion of growth. And then the next time someone insults you or does something to hurt you, you can think back to that checkout line and think, I can wait a little bit. I don't have to immediately blow up on this person. I just need to do what needs to be done and then move forward. I can love them, and it might be hard, but it's necessary. And together we can all work on this virtue. We can all improve ourselves, and we can all make the world a little bit less angry. Because heaven knows the world doesn't really need more anger right now. What it needs is more patience, more kindness, more willingness to listen, and overall more love. St. Lawrence, pray for us that we might be meek, patient, and love what is good. Thanks for listening, friends.